Jessica Preciado. I've been an English teacher in the Mount Diablo Unified School District for 5 years. I've been at Northgate, and then I was involuntarily transferred to Mount Diablo High School, and I ended up loving teaching at Mount, and I stayed there for 3 years. My past year at Mount Diablo High School, I had Isaiah. This is my first son. When I was getting ready to come back from my maternity leave, my son got really sick. He has a food allergy, a condition called FPIES. It's food protein induced enterocolitis syndrome. And it's a condition where the child reacts severely. They have a severe immune response to the proteins in foods, and he actually almost passed away during that first reaction. We ended up having to rush to the ER. He was unresponsive. It took them 4 hours to finally get him stabilized. And they ended up having to do an IO on him, where they drill into the shin bone to get fluids into their system through the bone marrow because they were unable to start a regular IV. And we ended up having to stay in the hospital for 5 days. And that Monday that I was supposed to return to work, I was in the hospital with Isaiah. I ended up not being able to go back to work because working full-time would have meant that I wouldn't be able to breastfeed my son. And yes, I would be able to pump, but pumping does not cause the body to produce breast milk the same way that nursing does. So I would be risking my milk supply going down, and breast milk was Isaiah's only safe food. So I needed to go back part-time if I went back at all. Being away from home for 4 hours at a time, being part-time would have been okay. It wouldn't have affected my milk supply like being away from home for 8 hours would have. So I started working with my administrators, my principal, Kate McClatchy, my vice principals, Julie Parks, Leanne Sosmowski. I'd been asking them if I could work part-time before this incident, but after my son got sick, I had no choice. I had to work part-time. It was part-time or nothing because I needed to be home to be with him so that I could nurse him so that he would have food. My administrators wouldn't work with me. They couldn't give me a part-time position. They said they didn't want to put that into the master schedule because then they would be stuck with a part-time position in the master schedule, and they didn't want to take any chances of doing that, which didn't make a lot of sense to me because I know that some of the best schools in our district, like College Park and Northgate, have part-time English teachers in their master schedule. And I wanted to come back to Mount so badly that I actually studied Mount's master schedule, and I saw that there was a way to easily collapse my 5th period class, which only had about 7 kids in it, to where they would only have to flip-flop what time they took history and what time they took English. They wouldn't even have to change what teachers they had, only what time of day they took what. I emailed all of my administrators and told them, you know, this kid can switch these 2 classes, this kid can switch these 2 classes, etc., collapsing my 5th period, and then I could teach 1 through 4 and be home, you know, within about 4 hours and still be able to take care of my son properly and still get to teach. I was actually volunteering to do the same amount of work for less pay because I would have the same number of students, the same amount of papers to grade, the same amount of planning to do. I would just get to leave earlier in the day. But they were just too busy, too stressed, too overwhelmed with their jobs, I guess, to try to work with me. So I was ignored. I personally delivered letters to their desks at one point asking them to please write me letters of recommendation. Since they couldn't give me part-time, I was going to have to look for part-time work elsewhere. And everything on EdJoin asked for a recent letter of recommendation. And they ignored those requests as well. So after 2 great years with them, they just couldn't do anything to work with me. And it was really painful, really confusing, really frustrating. I thought that they really valued me as a teacher. I thought we always had a great relationship. I thought they appreciated all the times I went above and beyond for my students and what an effective teacher I was. And I always got great reviews, great evaluations. And now that I needed them to do something for me, it was like I didn't exist anymore. Now I was an inconvenience. Now I was no longer of use to them, so they didn't want to bother. They couldn't be bothered with it. They had more important things to do. So.